Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst for 4th February 2025, where we'll be looking into 7 most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. In the first section, we'll be looking into 2 articles from a great depth of analysis, where in the first one, we'll be looking into the Green and Clean editorial in the Hindu, which pertains to the importance of the critical minerals in our world and the various government initiatives by the country in this regard. In the next one, we'll be looking into a detailed analysis regarding the various anti-conversion laws in the country and also what should be the way ahead. In the next part, we'll be discussing 5 more important articles where we'll be discussing this in context of the upcoming prelims 2025 examination. So stay tuned. Hello students, I hope you all are doing well. So with this, we'll be starting the very first article, which is on the critical mineral aspect. Now this article is focusing on the need for India to have a critical mineral framework, that is a comprehensive guideline, rules and regulation imperative for the country when it pertains to the critical mineral sector in the country, for the development of critical mineral sector. So in this article, we'll be looking into the significance of critical minerals. We'll be also understanding what are the various issues that Indian government is facing right now with regards to them. Also a particular way forward in this particular matter. Now this article is extremely crucial for our prelims, where even in mapping aspects, we have to sometimes locate the various important producers of critical minerals. We have to also look at some countries in particular where we have the most of the production and also the resources of critical minerals from. That is what is important from prelims perspective. When we also look at mains from GS3 perspective, we have to look into how this is extremely important from science and tech aspect, and also for bettering the infrastructure that is pertaining to the energy security of the country. We'll be starting with firstly about a basic definition of critical mineral. Now, a mineral is critical when the risk of supply shortage and associated impact on the economy is higher than other raw materials. Consider the case of iron, crude oil, where we understand these are standard raw materials we use in the production of various goods and services. But consider the case of critical minerals such as lithium, such as palladium, such as platinum, cobalt, which are used in sensitive electronic items, which are used in electric vehicles, which are used in battery storage technologies. So consider right now a 21st century which is connected digitally. If at all there is a shock in the production, for example, the COVID pandemic, which led to the shutdown of so many industries at one point of time. So it led to severe amount of inflation around the world because we saw the supply chain of semiconductors were restricted. Also with reference to Russia-Ukraine issues, also with reference to the various maritime issues that we have, the recent ongoing trade wars that our recent US president has started. So all of these things are impacting the critical minerals and the distribution and the supply chain. So this is what we have to understand, their criticality. Now, when we look at the global scale, we understand China is the biggest producer here, followed by other nations such as Australia, some say countries from Latin America too, where we have the most of the concentration of production. So India is missing here. Now when we try to understand the significance of critical minerals, firstly we have to appreciate the usage of critical minerals in sectors such as electronics, in the production of electric vehicles, in battery storage technologies, be it any electronic say industry, be it an industry which requires basics of semiconductors, they are used everywhere. So this is where also when we talk about our national security, we use so many sensitive components as a part of our defense equipments. We have sophisticated radars, fighter jets in which we use this kind of critical minerals. Also when we talk about environmental sustainability going forward, where we talk about achieving the sustainable development goals by 2030, and also energy security is actually a part of that. Apart from that, India has so many other commitments that we have to fulfill the net zero target by 2070. In here, renewable energies are becoming very important, where the production of solar PV modules, even the basic raw material there are critical minerals, right? Also, when we talk about energy security, we use crude oil imports to fuel our economy. We use coal imports to run our power sector. So based on, say, this kinds of fossil fuels and which are kind of polluting on our country, on our environment, on the entire world, we understand the energy security can be achieved by critical minerals. And if India is trying to invest in, actually by enhancing India's production capabilities of maybe solar PV modules by manufacturing better batteries for maybe storing hydrogen energy and various other components which can contribute to the better energy security and less import dependence on the rest of the nations. So these are the things we need to focus on. Also, when we talk about the supply chain resilience, we are right now dependent heavily on imports of critical minerals. Now, if at all there is a crisis or shock in the supply chain, India needs to be resilient in this aspect. So that is why countries which are having critical mineral production, they are kind of safe that, okay, if any crisis is taking place, at least we are producing our own critical minerals, and those things we can feed into our supply chain for raw materials and production of various electric vehicles, electric modules, and so on. Now, there is a report by CSEP, this is actually a working paper which analyzed why we have to understand that critical minerals is important for the country. Firstly, India has committed as a part of its Panchamrita that we need to be net zero by 2070, in which we also have sought to achieve 50% of our energy from renewable sources by 2030. So this means that we need to invest in clean and green energy sources, and those sources will be using critical minerals because they are the foundation of modern technology nowadays in 21st century, be it anywhere in any walk of life, be it even the screen on which you are watching me right now. Everything is filled by critical minerals. Going forward, the future will be increasingly dominant, or say the resources of critical minerals will be at the advantage of those countries which will be having them in abundance. Also, when we talk about the factors of criticality, I told that firstly, that is an economic factor, that the production of critical minerals and the various say output of mobile, smartphones, defense equipments and electric vehicles, so that determine the economic significance of a country. Consider the case of China right now, right, where China is right now, if at all it is developed, it's so many industrial sectors. It is due to its focus on increasing the supply chain of its critical mineral in the country, and also with some partnership with other countries such as Africa and so many other countries. Also, another factor of criticality is that the supply chain risk, be it any conflict, be it any what else. So that is what is making the critical minerals so critical for distribution, and that is what India is also trying to focus on right now. India is very well aware of the Chinese dominance. That is why over a period of time, the Indian government has initiated so many measures to improve the distribution and production of critical minerals within the country. So we'll be looking at some of the steps ahead also. But here, the most important initiative that India took recently is actually the National Critical Mineral Mission, where India is trying to establish an effective framework. Now, the importance for any framework is to provide a rule-based guidelines and also a norm, or say standardization of various important practices in the critical mineral sector. Also, this comes at the heels of recent discovery of massive lithium reserve in the Jammu and Kashmir region too. So that is what the government is trying to spend around 16,000 crore rupees to build up, to boost this particular sector. And here, this will be majorly led by the investments by our PSUs, and also this mission will be encompassing the entire value chain. Remember these words, and please do use these terms in your answers, that mineral exploration, mining, beneficiation, processing and recovery from end of life products are all a part when we talk about the critical mineral sector. Intensification of exploration efforts will be put in here, and also fast track regulatory approval process will be created, along with various other financial benefits to be associated with various private sector in the country, including startups who are very much interested to invest in the sector. Now, when we talk about the major article highlights apart from the critical mineral part here, so the main build up which this editorial is trying to build before going into the critical minerals is actually the India's clean energy transition progress and some of the challenges, because we have to understand critical minerals hold the key to effective transition to clean and greener energy via usage of some clean technologies such as electronic items, electric vehicles, batteries and so on. So critical minerals hold the key. But what are the issues which we are having right now? Firstly, the energy transition. Now, when we talk about, say, the budgetary allowances or say the expenditure allocated to the Ministry of New and Renewable Energies, so it is actually increasing over a period of time. But the funds are being underutilized due to ineffective implementation of so many green or say environmental friendly schemes in the country. So underutilization is a issue. Also, when we talk about the PM Kusum scheme, so we must be having a case study here. Firstly, this is a scheme where we have the installation of grid connected renewable energy for our farmers in the agricultural fields, where they can actually on their barren land or even on their say irrigated land, they can install solar modules, they can install solar cells like this, and they can derive the electricity that is needed for irrigation in their farms. Because we have seen so many wastage of electricity in the rural areas, that is leading to the loss of exchequer, right? And also this is leading to depletion of groundwater. So this is a very innovative initiative to promote three objectives: promoting solar energy, reducing water wastage, and also reducing the excessive power consumption, which also leads to increase of thermal power plants filled by coal resources. So that is why the PM Kusum was launched and many farmers adopted it over a period of time. Apart from that, we have also so many say incentives to the private sector to set up the solar pumps. But when we talk about the recent reports, less than 0.5 gigawatt of installed capacity is being visualized under this mission. So again, ineffective. Also, when we talk about COVID-19 and energy transition realizations, so despite India's lofty pledges at the COP26 at Glasgow, where we actually announced the India's Panchamrit targets, that is the 5 targets. In the comments you let me know which targets, because we have repeated this so many times in the Analyst. Despite that, the Indian government is on a very slow pace when we are trying to increase the renewable energy capacity. Now, when we also talk about the various policy measures and their impact, firstly, we have the PLI schemes on various aspects of industrial chemistry, on solar PV module production in the country. So there are various schemes to boost the production, but again, the private sector is not at all enthusiastic in heavily investing in this one. Also, when we talks about the basic customs duty, now Indian government is trying to shield the local raw material producer or say the producers of solar EV modules in India from Chinese influence, because we have to understand we are heavily dependent on the Chinese import of say solar raw material. So that is where the Indian government actually imposed a restriction on the say imports here on the solar PV cells. But despite these two incentives, we are not seeing heavy increase in the production of various electrical components envisaged under PLI scheme and the solar industry too. And lastly, when we talk about another issue here, it is about the renewable energy capacity versus the output. When we understand the total power generation in the country, mostly it has been led by coal, despite heavy investments in renewable energy, particularly solar and wind energy, right? We have seen over a period of time so many projects, so many initiatives have been made possible for these two sectors, apart from even the hydro energy and so on. We understand that still in India, above 70% is dominated by coal power generation. So this is why we need a critical mineral framework to actually understand and solve those issues. Firstly, when we talk about the significance, we have discussed in greater detail. We understand the significance of critical minerals in our country, be it the distribution, be it the need for our own production, because we are not even within the top 10 producers. Also, when we talk about reducing our dependence on China, significance is there. Now, what are the challenges that the country is facing? Firstly, these particular critical minerals and associated industries, these are extensively costly for the private sector to develop. So this is why many of the private sectors are not at all motivated, including even the startups. Next, when we talk about the government protecting the domestic economy by imposing the basic custom duty on the import of solar modules from China, that is good. But don't you think that if India is not at all at a point and at which it can produce its own modules, it has to be dependent on China for at least 2, 3, 5 more years, because we need some transition to develop the manufacturing sector of solar modules in the country. That is what is leading to inflationary trend of solar modules in the country. Solar modules, solar cells, they have become a little bit expensive because of the imposition of the BCDs here. So that is why this is one most important issue Thirdly, there is this issue of exploration and also excavation of these resources, because we found recently in Jammu and Kashmir huge amount of lithium resources. Despite that, there are environmental concerns as to maybe if we try to extract those lithium resources, it will be leading to the loss of biodiversity in the region. And particularly when we talk about Jammu and Kashmir, we talk about the Himalayan ecosystem. Already we are seeing so many extreme weather events in that particular region. So these are the associated risks here. But there are some good news from the Union Budget 2025 here. The government right now have actually announced some initiatives to boost the lithium-ion battery manufacturing in the country, because 35 additional capital goods for EV battery production in the country and 28 additional capital goods for mobile battery manufacturing will be added to the list of exempted capital goods. So this will be actually subjected to lower duties. Also, when we talk about boosting the domestic manufacturing for both smartphones and electric vehicles, another important initiative is for full exemption of BCD on cobalt, powder and waste and the scrap of lithium battery, lead, zinc and 12 more critical minerals. So the government listened to the increasing prices of these critical minerals in the country. That is why this good news. Also, when we talk about the leadership in critical mineral framework across the world, the US recently is now focused on itself only. US is telling that, okay, I do not want to focus on the world. Let me focus on making America great again. So right now, and also I'm estimating over the period of years, US will definitely withdraw itself from major aspects, because it will be trying to focus on its own domestic economy, while at the same time not at all leaving the military and economic and those kind of influences. But in this ones, right, it is actually kind of showing this withdrawal of its leadership. That is why India is having the scope to fulfill the vacuum here by distributing the benefits across sectors, across even countries, and across also those countries which are not benefiting from China's interest. What are the various other government initiatives that the government has undertaken? Firstly, amendments to the Mines and Minerals Act via opening up the auction for critical minerals for the very first time in the country. Also, exploration licenses are now possible to be granted to the private sector. If you look at it here in the map here, most of the critical minerals are concentrated in the eastern to southern sections of our country. Be it beryllium, cobalt, gallium and various other ones here, we find that these are also falling under Nakshal affected areas too. So this is what we understand. We have to also improve the internal security of our country. Apart from that, Indian government is also investing heavy funds in improving the research and development by tying up with various institutions across the country, right? By focusing mainly on refining them, because we are extracting them from rocks, ores, we have to refine them properly. That particular value addition must be done in a very proper manner. Apart from that, bilateral partnerships are also important here. In the comments section, you let me know. We have discussed this in previous sections also, that mineral security partnership is brokered by which country. And also India is a very important contributor to this one. Now, also, India's own PSU, the Kabil, is also partnering with Latin American nations, particularly when we talk about the lithium triangle. Bolivia, Argentina, Chile, which is forming this particular triangle. Here, it is having the world's 60% of the lithium stocks. So, Indian government is investing $24 million here. Apart from that, memorandum of understanding with Australia, and also the partnerships and agreements with Canada, Brazil, and also government has partnered with Kazakhstan to form the IREUK Titanium Limited. So these are the various partnerships that India is trying to do. And lastly, when we look about the key recommendations given in this particular editorial, firstly, we have to address the implementation bottlenecks. We are having so many important schemes, we have so many funds with the MNRE, but still those funds are not being effectively utilized. So firstly, on the implementation side, we have to work on. We have to also invest in grid scale battery storage technologies. This is actually say parallel to the grid electricity which we are having, or say the grid power sector which we are having right now. We now have the thermal power plants on, say, connected with other plants and other power distribution companies, the same thing which we can actually achieve with reference to the renewable sector too. So it actually requires heavy investments in having inverter technologies, energy storage, electric panels, generators. So this particular initiative must be focused on. Next, we must be promoting domestic manufacturing by actually trying to give more incentives to the private sector, because we understand that the country right now is heavily dependent 100% or say even 60%, 80% of those critical minerals on countries such as Chile, China, Belgium, Germany and rest of the world. Next, Africa's role must also be promoted right now, because India is trying to have so many important investments in Africa where even China is having. So to counter that, we must be also trying to improve our stake there. And that is why this will be actually be helping us to have a just and equitable critical mineral framework. So here in this, you let me know what are the answers to these PYQs in the comments below. Also try to attempt this mains question. You can actually use some important data from this particular diagram or from the discussion as a part of an introduction, and even use this important value additions in your answers. Right now we will be moving on to the next one. Rajasthan government has tabled anti-conversion bill, and here the offences are extremely severe, where be it jail term, be it the various bail conditions, these are extremely severe. And if at all if this is passed, Rajasthan will be joining 11 other states in having an anti-conversion law in the country. Now, what are anti-conversion laws? These are legislative framework which are passed by the, say, state legislatures, which are designed to regulate religious conversions, that is conversion between two different religions, and sometimes those conversions can be having the allegation of being forced conversions. That is, it is, for example, if a particular person is converting from one religion to the another religion, it can be alleged due to various evidence that that particular person was forced to convert to the other religion by various means such as coercion, threats, even threats to life and the immediate family members. So due to force, fraudulent and incentivized conversions, these particular laws in 10 more states are there in the country as of now, which the key features are generally prohibition on forced conversions. So while conversions, you can convert to any religion, obviously, because we have the right to choose our own religion in the country as a part of our fundamental right. But we have to understand that here, when we talk about forced conversion, that is going against the, say, constitutional doctrines. Also, some other features are that they have some notification requirement, that if at all you are trying to convert, you have to notify the government in advance, the various authorities in advance, and also the various fines and imprisonment. When we talk about the need, now according to a report in Uttar Pradesh from the time of 2021-23, 427 cases have been registered for forced conversion. Now these are only the registered cases. We do not know what the actual cases are. So also when we talk about the need to balance Article 25, which is giving us a right to practice our religion, propagate our religion, so there must be a balance between these two. Practicing and propagating, there must be a balance. We cannot force someone else to convert to a particular religious denomination. And because this is actually the individual agency of that person to convert or not. There can be also the third reason of financial, material, marriage promises made to a particular family, that if you can convert to this particular religion, I'll be giving you money. I will be, say, extending matrimonial ties with my families. This will be giving you, say, some other material benefits too. This is also there. Apart from that, the recent polarization of our Indian society on the part of religious hate speech, misinformation, rumors, these things are giving rise to the conditions, to the mentality of converting one religious denomination to the another one. It is actually a very dangerous trend that can disrupt the peaceful fabric and the unified diversity fabric of our country. So here also Supreme Court have had its own observations over a period of time. We will be looking at various other cases, but to summarize, Supreme Court actually told that forced conversions are a serious issue to the society, and even right to choose is actually a part of individual agency. So we cannot force through any kind of conversion here. The individual must be giving the consent for any kind of conversion. Now, when we talk about the status, when we talk about the background a little bit, now this is nothing new in the country right now. This was actually a debate which was continuing from pre-independence to even post-independence, where we have actually various instances of many debates, particularly from 1920s, from 1930s, to have national or say nationwide legislations on anti-conversion laws. In the comment section, can you let me know what can be the reason during which this time was actually the main important time for debate on anti-conversion laws? Also, when we talk about the Indian government efforts to have a law on this matter, we have a bill in 1954, the Indian Conversion Regulation and Registration Bill, which legislated to enforce missionary licensing and conversion registration with government officials. That means if at all you want to convert another person to your own religion, you must be having some licenses, and also the registration must be mandatory along with the scrutiny of the government officials. But the main issue here is that the opposition allege that this is going against the secular fabric of our country. This is going against the tenets which Indian philosophy stands on, and also law and order is under the state list. So this is why, there were various debates also as to whether the center can legislate law on this matter which is falling under the state list here. Now in this direction, we also have to consider, does the word conversion appear in any text of our constitution, any article? No, we do not have the word conversion in any part of our constitution here. And when we talk about, say, the state list here, it was actually the Odisha government where it tried to legislate in 1967 the first anti-conversion law in India. Now, over a period of time, we have seen 10 other states have done that. Rajasthan recently is preparing a bill on this. Now, this bill is having severe, aspects such as, unlawful conversion to be annulled, court empowered to invalidate such marriages, and this will be a non-bailable and cognizable offence and could invite a stringent punishment up to 10 years in prison. Also, compensation to victim is mandated. Next, various penal clauses include a minimum fine of 15,000 to 25,000, and also for conversion of SC, ST, the amount is actually higher. Registration of institutions must be under scrutiny, as those organizations which are, kind of subverting the provisions, they will be cancelled. So, apart from this, we have the various other states also, such as Arunachal Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, right, and other states too, which have these provisions here. So generally, we find that the provisions are kind of strict when we are dealing with anti-conversion laws. But there are some issues in this particular debate. Firstly, the various state laws are extremely vague when it comes to definition of using force in conversion, inducing someone, or alluring or attracting someone to convert. Now, these terms are extremely vague. This can be prone to misinterpretation and abuse by the criminal justice system in the country and in also the various states here. Now, there are various critics who tell that, is anti-conversion law against fundamental right? Because there can be some instances, according to the critics, that the police, that the justice system is kind of trying to frame a particular community in a bad taste. So that is where it can go against the fundamental right of those communities as a whole. Also, when we talk about the international doctrines and international agreements, mainly we have the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. We have the International Covenant for Protection of Civil Rights, where we have various aspects of, particularly Article 18 of both of them, where the Article 18 talks about, the freedom of religion in all aspects. So this is also something which we need to focus on. Next, can this be a blanket provision of targeting minority communities? Can we actually manipulate the law and order of this particular arrangement? Can we actually abuse and misuse some terms, and can we actually corner one community and try to attack them? According to various critics, this is also a ground. And finally, there are other critics who also tell that this is in conflict with the secular nature of our constitution. Now, according to various Supreme Court cases here, in the first one, now the Supreme Court upheld constitutionality of various anti-conversion laws in the state governments. Generally, this was the case of Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. So the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality that, okay, there can be instances where conversions can be forced. So this is not at all unconstitutional, that the laws can be allowed to, continue. Also, the Supreme Court told that there is no right to convert under right to propagate, right? For example, in our country, we have the right to propagate religion under Article 21 as a fundamental right. So Supreme Court told that if you're propagating, you cannot override this right with the right of, the right to choose religion of a particular person. Next, forced conversions can also disrupt the public order according to this case here. In the Sarla Modgal case, which is an extremely important case, particularly for the implementation or say the call for UCC or Universal Civil Code implementation in the country, apart from this, Supreme Court right now focused on a different thing. That the right to marry a person of choice is actually a fundamental right. And for example, say, there is a particular person who converted from one community to another. Then the first person's family can be angry with the decision of that person. So in that case, maybe that family can go to the police station and file a complaint that, see, the other family, the other religion has actually forced this conversion. So there were many cases of interreligious marriage which are not at all forced in many cases, right? They can be out of, say, love marriage due to other aspects. So those kind of things must be protected too. So that's why Supreme Court told that right to marry is a personal choice, is a fundamental right. While forced conversions which are having ulterior motives, they must be scanned for evidences, they must be investigated properly before coming to any conclusion. This particular thing was reiterated in a Lata Singh case of 2006, where the right to marry a partner of choice was upheld, and also no interference in this domain must be there out of fake cases of false or say forced conversions. Next, the right to privacy judgment 2017. Please let me know what is the name of this in the comments below. In this judgment, right, Supreme Court again told that it is a personal autonomy of a particular person to marry or to choose a partner of their own choice. Finally, in the Hadia versus Ashokan KM case 2018, individuals' right to conversion through marriage was upheld, which is actually trying to look into the various fake cases that is pertaining to anti-conversion. So there are instances where these things are misused too, apart from the real cases. So the way forward is that there must be a thorough review of such anti-conversion laws in the various states by the center. The law ministry must be having extensive reports on whether we have a rational or say logical anti-conversion law in the country or not. There must also be no discrimination when we are conducting various investigation, because sometimes many critics say due to political considerations, due to money power, muscle power, those investigations are sometimes subverted and also going against a particular community. There can also be coercive or fraudulent conversions for which we must be strictly implementing the laws. That is what we must be doing, right? Also, we must be having multi-stakeholder involvement. We must be involving our school teachers, college teachers. We must be involving religious leaders. We must be also involving the parents, the various sections of the society, for example, various NGOs which are working for the upliftment of minorities in the country. We must be involving all of the individuals who can promote a peaceful mediation in such issues before even going to judiciary. And finally, it is the individual freedom according to the Justice Deepak Gupta, that state has no business to know if an individual has changed religion or not. It is the individual freedom, it is the individual autonomy, which is also reiterated in the 2017 case. It is actually the individual's right to choose their own partner. Here we have to focus on. And when we have come to the end of this particular article, I have a question for you all. Please do attend these types of questions. Try to write some answers so that even before prelims, your answer writing skills are still intact. Now we'll be moving on to the simplified sections. In this article, Supreme Court is giving some clarifications on the various aspects of definitions of forest. This is extremely important for the prelims examination, where we have to be very particular about forest and its definitions. In GS3, we have conservation efforts, and also in GS2, in the PYQs, there was a question on how the evolution of constitutional framework regarding the environmental, say, aspects have been seen over a period of time. So that what brings us to the topic of history regarding the definition of forest land in the country. So firstly, we have so many forest laws in the country, where in comprehensive way, I am trying to sort out this issue. In the first one, when we talk about the definition of forest land, so it was the land covered with trees, brushwood and jungle, according to the Indian Forest Act 1865. In 1878, the Forest Act stated that the earlier definition would continue, and also any such land which is actually a forest land and under the central government, they are also covered as forests. And also state or reserve forest, protected forest and village forest dimensions were brought in for the first time. In the Indian Forest Act 1927, the earlier definitions were kept in, along with a duty on timber which was introduced. This is very significant. Why? Because diversion of forest land for non-forestry purpose were extremely important for the British. Yes, you heard it correct. Because the British used the forest wood to build railways all across the India and also across the world. So it came at the cost of our forest land, and that is why they tried to change the, say, definitions of timber and also imposed a duty on timber which would be the monopoly of the British itself and not the Indian citizens. Next, when we talk about the Conservation Act of 1980, so here Government of India approval made mandatory with reference to any non-forestry use. Now, the Government of India tried to regulate deforestation which was taking place at a very rapid rate. So that is why the approval by the government, central government, was made mandatory. In the T.N. Godavarman case of 1996, for the very first time in post-independent India, the definition of forest was actually defined properly. That is, the definition of forest would be the dictionary definition of forest. In the comment section, any one of you, please do let me know what is the dictionary definition of forest according to any dictionary of your choice. Supreme Court told that take any dictionary. What is the dictionary definition? That is the definition of forest. So you cannot later tell me that, okay, this brush land is not there, that particular tree is not there, so that is why that is not a forest land, right? So the clarity must be there. Apart from this, the records of center, state and various other expert committees which were set up to measure forest area and also classify forest area country, that particular thing also must be kept into mind when we are looking into definition and record of existing forests. Also, in 2023, under the Forest Conservation Amendment Act, land as notified as forest under Indian Forest Act 1927 and various other forest acts were designated as forest officially in 2023. Land as forest as on 1980 was also being declared here. And finally, this does not include land which has been officially changed from forest use to use for non-forest use purpose on or before 1996, that is before this Godavarman case here. And finally, we have the One Rules 2023, where the government was mandated to prepare records of the various forest lands, and that was having a deadline of 1 year. So these are actually the entire debates regarding the definition of forest, which is also going on in the Supreme Court right now. Right? Supreme Court has told on Monday all the states that no steps will be taken by them to reduce forest land unless compensatory land is provided by them for afforestation. In the country, this is a norm that if at all we are trying to afforest any region, any particular, say, sector, we must be trying to, say, give some compensation for that. That is via afforestation itself. Now, when we try to observe the recent Supreme Court case which is going on, it instructed all the states that no steps will be taken by them to reduce forest land unless compensatory land is provided by them for afforestation. Further, Supreme Court told that expression forest would continue to have a broad and all-encompassing meaning to include the 1.97 lakh square kilometers of undeclared forest land too, that is pertaining to the dictionary definition of forest, which was also under the Godavarman case, which we discussed, right? And here we have to also understand that the exercise of preparing this record, that which was a part of the One Rules, right? This is also not yet completed as of now, right? This record would have a consolidated record of all the forest land, such as forest government records, right? Including forest-like areas such as unclassed lands and community forest lands. So that particular thing which was to be prepared by 1 year, that is not yet completed. Right? When it came to the meaning of forest, the court directed the government for clarity that you have to revert to the dictionary definition of forest. Even in 2023, Supreme Court told the same thing, that the all-encompassing dictionary meaning would continue to hold until the states and union territories prepare a consolidated record of forest land. So whatever amendments you are making under 2023 laws, rules, regulations, whatever it is, you cannot hold that definition until you implement my earlier 1996 order. That is, you have to survey all the land under dictionary definition, then you classify as to whatever you want. First, you declare the forest as forest lands. So that what brings us to this 2012 question, which is a very interesting question. You read this, let me know the answer in the comments below. In the next article, we'll be looking into the ethanol blending program of the country, and also we'll be looking into how India will be sourcing the raw materials to produce the rest of the required target for ethanol blending in the country as of now. This is very important for our prelims, where we have to discuss the various important basics regarding environmental, ecology, biodiversity and climate change, and also in GS3, where we have to talk about conservation aspects and also for the environmental pollution and degradation initiatives in the country. Now, when we talk about ethanol blending, it is nothing but the production of C2H5OH, which is a renewable biofuel that can be easily be blended with petrol to transition into a cleaner economy. Why? Because when we try to blend ethanol with petrol, we reduce the particulate matter that is produced by petroleum consumption only. And here, when we talk about, say, production of ethanol, this is actually possible by fermentation of various sugars or starch items, such as the leftovers of sugarcane processing, right, from sugarcane juice, from sugar containing materials such as sugar beet, sorghum, starch containing materials such as corn, kawasa, rotten potatoes, even damaged FCI grains which have been mandated right now, right, which are broken wheat, broken rice, which are unfit for human consumption, and also food grains during surplus phase. So these are the things where we can use to ferment, purify and get ethanol. And here we can actually blend with petrol and transport to the rest of the fuel stations, where the cars which are compatible with such particular fuel, they can run and they can actually have the benefits of ethanol blending for the entire country. Because firstly, it is trying to reduce pollutants such as CO or various nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, because we have blended this renewable biofuel and we have reduced the number of pollutants in this particular consumption. Also, when we talk about energy security, India as a country is dependent heavily on the imports of crude oil, and this will be saving us heavy amount of bill, because we are trying to have the blending ratio of 20% by 2025. Right? So we can understand we can actually save 20% petrol cost by 2025, right? So this is what can also lead to energy security in the country, because over a period of time we can increase the blend ratio in the petrol. And also this will be boosting our farmers' income, because they will be producing the crops which are required for ethanol, because we require this kind of crops. Also, some other farmers can be specifically producing crops suitable for ethanol production, so their incomes can also be doubled. Apart from this, this will be also giving an octane boost for the various transportation vehicles in the country. Now, when we try to decode the news, recently Nitin Gadkari has told that 20% ethanol blending target to be done by 2025 will be expedited by the end of the year itself, right? And also this means that we need to produce 1100 crores liters of fuel in 1 year itself. Now this brings us to this question, that where will this come from, this particular huge figure? Already we have to understand that the majority of this will be coming from sugar, because the projected sugar production from for next year is around 315 lakh tons, out of which 40 lakh tons will be going to ethanol. Ethanol for non-fuel uses will come from low grade molasses called C heavy, right? So this is where we have to also keep these particular terms in our mind too for our prelims examination, right? Also, the government has decided to reduce the price of FCI rice to distilleries from 28 to 22.5 rupees per kilo. And when we talk about the other source of where we'll be getting this 1100 crore liters from, this will be from the maize, right? Because India was producing little to no ethanol from maize production. And here we have to understand that India is dependent on, say, maize imports as of now, because imports started ramping up from April 2024, right? And right now what we have to see that the states such as Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, they are trying to grow maize crop over a period of time, and that is why it's increasing the maize cultivation over a period of time, because this is a steady and lucrative ethanol market, not only in India but also in rest of the world. So more of the farmers are producing maize for better production of the ethanol in the country. So that is why we expect that the demand will be met. And also when we talk about the general and classification of biofuels, we have looked into the first classification. That is where we will be sourcing the raw materials from various feedstocks, such as the crops which are having sugar, starch. The second generational, biofuel or ethanol, where we will be producing bioethanol from wood, agricultural residues, forestry waste, organic waste, and so on. Further going forward, we should have the target of producing third generational biofuel, that is using algae, seaweed and other microbes, right? And this is what we can lessen our dependence on the food grain production, because we need these food grains for our consumption too, especially India being a say country which is having huge amounts to feed. That is where we must be gradually transitioning to the third and obviously to the fourth generational biofuels, where we will be producing genetically modified crops and also genetically modified algae and biomass. Using biotechnology, we can actually produce a different class of crops or say organisms only for biofuel generation. So that is what brings us to these two PYQs. This is a very smart PYQs. You let me know what are the answer of these in the comments below. Now in this one we have a big and elaborate editorial on the India's shipping industry. Now we'll be trying to filter out the important information according to our prelims and mains syllabus. Firstly, when we talk about the shipping sector in the country, it is having huge promises, because firstly we have the Sagarmala port program, which is having the 5 pillars of port modernization, port connectivity, port-led industrialization, coastal community development, coastal shipping and inland waterways. If we look at the total coastline of our country, it runs into more than 7,500 kilometers, where we have so many industrial locations, we have coastal communities, we have the aspects of increasing the export from our ports, where we have so many major ports. And also as a part of the Sagarmala program, we are not only focusing on the seaside here, we are also focusing on improving the inland waterways program of the country too. So this is what is trying to modernize India's 12 major ports and 185 minor ports, which are targeted across these scenarios. This was initiated in 2015 and we have the target of around 20 years to 2035. Now this editorial is giving us important data as to, for example, there are around 839 projects in our shipping industry amounting to 5.8 lakh crore, which is planned till 2035 as a part of this program. When we talk about the potential of export-import growth, so we have the potential of around $116 billion as of 2022, which is actually, showing increased amounts of growth over a period of time. But we have various issues. Firstly, over a period of time, we have seen a decline in vessels handled at various ports. This means that the demand for Indian ports are coming down maybe. Also, we have lesser Indian registered ships in the country. This is also maybe hinting that the domestic production is not enough. Next, slower gross tonnage, that is the tonnage or say the goods and various other consignments leaving and entering Indian ports, that is also slowing down. And also average vessel age in India in 2022-23 was 26 years. That was recently reduced to 21 years due to recent purchases of various ships in the country. Next, when we talk about the ship ownership rank of India, it fell from 17 to 19. So these are the various issues that we have. Apart from this, we also have the various challenges particularly which are mentioned in this article, which are huge. I've tried to classify some of these here. So these are generally capital financial challenges, ship building sector struggles, and competition from foreign ships. When we talk about capital and finance issues, mainly the borrowing costs are very high from Indian domestic sector, and the loan tenures are extremely short. That means the installation amounts for the private sector is extremely high. Apart from this, the collateral rules, the security collateral that the private sector has to keep for the loans, they go beyond just keeping your ships as collateral and various other requirements too. Apart from this, the taxation is also unfavorable. Many Indian flag vessels are taxed higher than foreign ones. Apart from this, regulatory barriers such as complex approvals, slow fund repatriation for ship purchases are seen. Apart from this, the next issue is regarding the sector struggles, lack of infrastructure for large vessels, high cost for raw materials, for example, steels, imported components, import reliance on machinery and parts, where even we have so many duties which increase the cost of production. We have skill gap in the workforce where we have to take the help of various international companies too. So this is increasing our cost at the end of the day. Limiting financial options and also delays in shipping delivery discourage investment in the sector by the domestic components. And when it comes to the foreign competition from various other ships, we have vessels which are benefiting from lower taxes abroad from mainly tax havens, which are also getting easier access to capital internationally, having lesser regulations than India. They are thriving in India, right? Also, when we talk about hidden ownership, fewer compliance cost, and also Indian ships which are struggle, for example, paying the higher say port charges in the country, everything is not pointing to a good direction. That is why the Indian National Ship Owners Association has given two recommendations: creating a maritime development fund and granting infrastructure status to ships which are incorporated under the Maritime India Vision 2030. As we can see here, this is actually a target of having 25,000 crore fund to actually look at better incentives in this particular sector. Now, when we talk about the fund in the recent budget, this was given a fund of 30,000 crore, right? Where you have to understand 25,000 crore would be only dedicated to this fund, where infrastructure status for large vessels, facilitation of shipping clusters in the country, a 10-year extension of basic customs duty to protect the domestic manufacturers and the stakeholders in this particular sector, giving credit incentive, extension of tonnage tax schemes to inland vessels too. These are all the incentives which are given. But here, mainly we have to keep in mind this particular fund. This fund is talked about by the author here that devil is lying in the details. That means there are some issues here in the details part, that government will be giving only 49% of the fund here. Rest are actually coming from the major ports, right? So these major ports, they will be having the burden of taking loans, of financing the rest of the money. It is also unclear as to whether the 25,000 crore will be mobilized in a single year or over multiple years, and still this money is falling short in the viewpoint of the author here, who was actually a former IRS officer and also in charge of major shipping developments in the country. Now, this particular scheme or fund is also missing the various tax disparities which we talked about in the issues, be it the foreign vessels operating from tax havens, they are benefiting from better amount of taxation policies, but Indian vessels are subjected to 5% IGST on purchase price, a levy which is not imposed on the foreign flag ships, right? Also, the Indian ship is aging over a period of time. That is why this sector requires long-term financing, maybe in the tenures of 7 to 10 years of loans, where India also needs various new shipyards in the country, and also we need to transition to a landlord model too, where the ports can actually rent out their operations to various private sector entities too. And finally, we must also be taking the help of various external commercial borrowings as extremely lower cost by actually trying to partner with various other countries and their banks. So this was all for this one. Now in the next one, we'll be looking into the recent crash of rupee against the dollar and the various important concepts from the extremely basic perspective of your prelims 2025 examination. So we'll be starting with the very basic thing as to how the currency values are determined. They are generally determined by the market forces of demand and supply of all the currencies in the world. So with reference to the market forces, their values are determined. And based on that, we have, for example, in India's case, when we talk about own exchange rate, we mean this ratio, that is rupee is to dollar, which is denoted by exchange rate. And here on the y-axis, we'll be taking the rupees to dollar. On the x-axis, we'll be having the supply of foreign currency such as a dollar here, right? And when we talk about the market forces, we are talking about the market forces of demand and supply of the dollar. If the market forces of demand, right, increase with reference to dollar, then we'll be seeing an increase in the equilibrium exchange rate, right? So this is actually when we mean by exchange rate has increased. This is actually when our currency depreciates. When the demand of the dollar increases, it leads to appreciation of dollar and the depreciation of Indian rupee, which is happening right now, that the demand of dollar is increasing over a period of time, as it also seen in this curve here, right? And when the opposite happens, when the exchange rate goes down, our rupee appreciates, right? Also, when we talk about the nominal and real exchange rate, nominal exchange rate means that we are trying to compare the currencies of rupee to dollar, right, or rupee to pound, or rupee to any other currency. So in this aspect, we are having two currencies among which we are comparing their prices, right, exchange rates. So this is what we mean by the overall, say, exchange rate, that is nominal exchange rate. When we adjust the nominal exchange rate with inflation that is taking place in either of the countries, right, in both of the countries, that we get here the real exchange rate. Also, when we talk about some other concepts which were asked in the paper, that is need and read. When we talk about need, here we are not talking only about dollar or rupees or dollar or pounds. We are talking about a basket of currencies with which India is trading, right, with these countries India is actively trading with the value of our rupee. So this is your NEER, and this is actually opposite to exchange rate. That means the value, also the effect is opposite, that when we have increasing NEER, we see rupee appreciation, because in NEER, on the numerator we take basket of currencies, because and on exchange rate we have actually taken rupee to dollar, that is our Indian rupee. So in this one, in this case, it is just inverted. So just keep this thing in mind for your prelims, right? So whenever NEER increases, we have appreciation. Whenever NEER decreases, we have depreciation. And here finally, when we talk about REER, it is just NEER minus inflation in the all of the currencies which are calculated for this purpose. So NEER and REER are actually the weighted average value of those currencies. And here, what are the various factors which are determining the exchange rates? We have the market forces of demand and supply. We have the inflation, which can also, high inflation can actually lead to depreciation. We have interest rates, where high interest rate in India, for example, can lead to appreciation of Indian rupee, because many investors will be coming into India and demanding more Indian rupee, leading to appreciation. We also have balance of trade. Sometimes if we have high trade deficit in India, for example, we demand more dollars, that will be leading to appreciation of Indian rupee. And finally, speculation. For example, if someone is speculating that dollar will be strong, then they will be buying more dollar, then more dollar appreciation and depreciation of Indian rupee. So this is what are the factors that we've discussed right now, which are also contributing to recent Indian rupee weaknesses. That is, we have a strong US dollar, that is why rupee is depreciating more. We have FII outflows from the country, because we have firstly our RBI rate cut speculation. In India, if the interest rate is coming down, then people will be going away to the other countries where interest rates are higher. Then also FII is not well confident with the various aspects of trade war that Donald Trump has started right now, with reference to various tariffs that it is employing on Canada, on China. Also, it has paused the tariffs on Mexico. So these are what are leading to FII's outflows too. So this is actually one of the main reasons right now, that is the trade war that is happening. Next, also the oil importer demand in India is increasing, right? That is where they demand dollar for their transactions, which is also leading to a little bit of rupee depreciation. Next, the domestic equity markets are also not functioning well due to various domestic factors, due to which the investors are not also very confident of investing in the country right now. So what RBI is doing with this particular matter? RBI is selling the dollars to make this particular thing quite balanced here. Also, India is told that India never uses the exchange rate policies to promote export like China does. So India is also not looking into this matter. India is actually using its forex reserves. If you can see, right, forex reserves have heavily depleted over a period of time, and one of the reasons why it has done, because RBI is extensively selling dollars in the market using its own forex reserves of various foreign currency assets and so on. So also, when we talk about the real value, when we talk about the need and read values, right, we are talking only about the dollar. But we have to also look as to whether India has depreciated against other currencies or not, which is not true in this case. While India did not depreciate severely under the other currencies which we have seen, which were actually calculated as values of read and need. So this is what brings us to the end here, and there are 3 PYQs. I want all of you to participate here and let me know what is the answer in the comments. In the final article, we'll be looking into the aspects of extra long staple cotton and the recent government initiative to push it forward. Before that, we have to look into the basics of cotton cultivations, because UPSC asks us such basic PYQs such as this one. So cotton is known as white gold because it is actually one of the most important and rewarding commercial crop for the farmers. When we talk about the growing conditions, it requires a temperature of hot, humid and 210 frost-free period, where the soils must be well-drained, soiled, particularly black soil if you can look at here, and well-drained aluminium soils are particularly preferred, and those soils must not be very prone to waterlogging because the crops are very sensitive to waterlogging. We have to also appreciate that cotton grows on a variety of soils. As you can see, these are the major cotton producing states where we have Gujarat, Maharashtra, Telangana, which are the top 3 according to 2022-23 data. And here, when we talk about India's cotton industry, India is the largest producer of cotton, and the central zone, which are consisting of states such as Gujarat, Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, these are the highest producing states here. And look at this question. The question says that the crop is a subtropical in nature, a hard frost is injurious to it, and it requires at least 210 frost-free days and 50 to 100 centimeters of annual rainfall for its growth. So here the crop in question is the cotton crop, and here that is why India is trying to promote the growth of cotton crop, specifically higher varieties, higher and better varieties of cotton. So this particular mission or initiative is trying to promote the long staple fiber production in the country, where you can see this long staple fiber is having fewer joints as compared to short staple fiber, which makes this particular fabric extremely softer. And this is actually a variety which is also known as Egyptian or Pima cotton, which comes from Peru. And also we have to understand this is a superior blend of cotton known as extra long staple with long fibers, absorbing ability, and also durability is better. In India, we have the MSP for ELS cotton, right? But the farmers are not at all enthusiastic because the ELS yields per acre is extremely low. As you can see, it is only having 7 to 8 quintals per acre. Also, additionally, they are unable to market their produce too. That is why this mission for cotton productivity has been, introduced, where it will be looking into boosting science and technology support to the farmers. It will be also helping reduce the pests and the weeds that has to be managed apart from the conventional cotton farming. So that is why it will be also trying to promote the HTBT cotton, which will be herbicide resistant, which is not legal in the country right now. So it will be trying to look into R&D in this particular topic, and finally it will be promoting better conditions for the cotton growing farmers. So here it again some PYQs from 2021. You let me know what is the answer in the comments below. And with this, I thank you all for being a very patient audience. Please do the quiz which is following up, and till we meet again, all the best and best of luck. Thank you.